All right, well, it's the top of the hour. I think it's time to begin. Welcome to the Hood River Soaring 2022 season kickoff and safety meeting. Appreciate you all joining us. This is, of course, as we just said, being recorded as well for those who don't have the opportunity to join here this afternoon. Brief introduction, my name is Seth Johnson. I'm the Safety Committee Chair at Hood River Soaring. I was volunteered for this position, I guess it would have been late last spring, and have been doing the best I can to stand on the shoulders of giants at the club here thus far. A little bit of background about myself. I'm a Horizon Airlines pilot based in Portland, and joined the club looking to maybe get my glider.
Only for a couple more days though, right?
Oh, well, yeah, I'm not there yet. I've still got to, I have to manage not to get fired from Horizon for another week. So we'll see. I don't have to fly any airplanes, so it's unlikely anything bad's going to happen in the next 7 days. So that's about it. Do a little bit of glider towing at the club, and I'm just kind of learning my way through. So was asked to fill this position, and doing the best that I can. We will run through the presentation with our presenters here to begin with, and then I guess it would probably be most orderly for people to hold comments, concerns, discussion, grievances, whatever, to the end, and we can kind of circle back and cover all those. Although individual presenters may choose to host the forum during their sections as well, that's totally okay. So leaving the format somewhat loose in that regard. I'll see if I can cycle through the presentation here. So we'll have a brief overcap of the membership, the leadership board and instructors and tow pilots of Hood River Soaring. Talk a little bit about our safety processes. And then we'll have presenters for ground operations, aero tow, CFI information, and then for our tow pilots as well. And then again, at the end, closing remarks. So changes in 2022, we have a new tow plane, and that's really the most important thing. It looks brand new. It smells brand new. Although it may have some tow pilot smell in it now, that's inevitable. There was a lot of change for 2021 with the pandemic and everything that was involved and more or less continues to be involved with that. From my perspective, it didn't seem like there was a tremendous amount of change other than a new tow plane between last spring and now. I don't know, Steve or Ty or Stan, or other presenters, if you'd like to chime in with any changes that you see here in the club coming in through 2022.
Well, I think we'll probably touch on it, but the big one is the change of using a reel for the tow line and previously, and then the fixed tow line. So that's the big difference for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Operationally,
but I think we'll probably touch on that throughout the comments.
Okay. Yeah, no big structural changes in the club though. Anything I'm missing, which maybe I am.
No.
And photo credit to Ty Sibley, also, who is flying the tow plane in that picture.
And my mom took that picture.
I shamelessly stole it without attribution.
That's all right.
So I just have some small comments and discussion here on safety here at the club, and I'll make them brief and kind of base them on my experience, what I'm doing up here in Seattle as an instructor here at Horizon Airlines on the Q400, and background in powered flight, much more, of course, than soaring. And as we come into the spring I did drone stuff too, and that's how I always phrase that. For powered and unpowered flight, really, as we roll into the spring and you haven't been flying all winter, it helps to think about what it's going to take to get you proficient for the spring flying season. This is either flying a Cessna or a glider. And we have at the club here in section 2 of the operations manual, our back in the saddle plan. But really, the way I see it is this is a discussion between you and your CFI, or between you and yourself, potentially, as far as what your plan needs to be, and where you feel you need to work to be both proficient and current, because they're not necessarily the same thing. Just because you're legal to fly, if you haven't flown, say in 6 months, and you say, well, I'm just going to go do 3 takeoffs and landings and take my cousin on a cross-country flight, that may not necessarily be safe. You're current, but maybe you're not proficient. And I think there's probably a lot of corollary to the soaring world as well. Very similar requirements for currency for both powered and unpowered flight. And once you sort of have a plan and decide that you do want to get current, want to be proficient, and want to be as safe a pilot as possible, what are your personal minimums going to be? Just because you can fly under certain conditions doesn't mean your proficiency level will support that. Things that come to mind for me are weather, clouds, which we often get in Hood River. What do you feel comfortable with as far as ceilings, visibility, that type of thing, or wind conditions? Or if you're going to go fly in a place that's unfamiliar, do a cross-country flight, or go take a glider out to another club. So for our club members, the back in the saddle soaring proficiency plan is the tool that we have to track members' training and kind of currency on an annual basis. And this is something that needs to be completed on an annual basis. And really, it should be a discussion with you and with instructors at Hood River Soaring or your local club as far as what you think that needs to be, what it's going to take for you to feel both safe and confident in your flying skills coming into the new season. There's a lot of great resources on the Soaring Society of America website, and one that really sticks out to me are these 10 steps to safer soaring. I won't read them all out. I think probably for everybody here who's a pilot, it'll be pretty evident which each of those 10 are, what subjects they're addressing. Attached at the bottom there, though, the model that we use here at the airlines, I don't know, all airlines use it, but probably most, this threat and error management model. And I think a lot of what we do here at the airlines, is very rigid and proceduralized, and necessarily so, with safety being primary in mind. And really, everything we can do to prevent any undesired consequences or accidents or incidents is what we're trying to do. And this model with the layers of Swiss cheese, these are all kinds of defenses that we can have, be it our policies and procedures, be it our training, be it other resources we have, such as other pilots and flight instructors here at the clubs. The one thing really to highlight is you're never going to be able to prevent yourself from making errors. You're going to make errors on every flight. And really what you were trying to do is to have as many tools as possible to prevent those errors from becoming untrapped, leading to undesired consequences or ultimately an accident or an incident. And so, everything we can do to plan ahead of time for our flights, to be trained as much as possible, to be proficient, and then again, to set our own personal minimums, hopefully would serve to prevent any kind of accidents or incidents, or even worse, a violation where you lose your certificate. Again, there's a tremendous number of resources there on the Soaring Society website, and I would encourage anybody to go look at those. They're pretty thorough. We had some synopses of incidents and accidents in the presentation last year, and there is a database on the Soaring Society of America website about just any accidents or incidents that have been reported. I went through that. I also looked through the NTSB website, and it seems like maybe it was a pretty safe year. I looked from March of last year to March of this year. Only saw 3 reported incidents from the SSA, and there were none that I could find in the NTSB register, either for soaring operations, Piper Pawnees, Cessna Ag Wagons, anything like that. It seemed like it was a safe year. So just a quick synopsis of these 3. I won't read through these. This one, there was not a glider make listed, but maybe a common thread through a lot of light aircraft incidents are basic airmanship and aircraft handling skills. I guess maybe not necessarily only for light aircraft, for airline Part 121 flying as well. That's becoming more of an issue. Just basic hand flying. So again, something we can look at and basic, what our plan is going to be for the next year. Maybe it would be going up with an instructor on gusty crosswind days in Hood River and getting some practice dealing with some of the turbulence associated with some of the structures and trees around the landing strip there. This one looked like maybe it was a little bit more spicy. Potentially having the air brakes opened in flight. We have some new towing procedures here at Hood River without the reel, as Steve mentioned. There are pre-flight checks to be completed, which I'm sure will be touched on here later in the presentation. And those checks are important, making sure we're not towing with the spoilers deployed. And then, basic airmanship if there is an issue in the flight, by practicing rope tow brakes and that type of thing. And then a thorough pre-flight and post-flight inspection being completed. Sounds like may have prevented this incident as well. But quick action by the front seat pilot to resecure the ballast prevented anything bad from happening in this incident. All right, moving on. Hopefully I have all this correct, the best I could. It was current as of some point. So the list of our club directors and officers and committee chairs here at the club. And then added from last year, all of our tow pilots as well as instructors. Because unless you have a powered glider, you're not going anywhere without the tow pilots. They're underappreciated. Just throwing one out there for Ty. All right. COVID-19 procedures and precautions. So this is fluid day by day. Here in Oregon, it sounds like maybe on the 11th, they will be relaxing the mask mandate. So our processes moving forward are just to follow current local guidance as the pandemic has been fluid. In the past almost 2 years, I think we should probably remain so as well. Of course, this would be following local guidelines, your comfort level as well. There are a lot of accepted risks in aviation, and being in a small enclosed space with another person is a risk. So it's all about risk management. A little bit more on our safety process. This is a slide from last year. Again, all part of your back in the saddle plan, ensuring that you are both safe and proficient for the coming season of flying. recommendations based from the SSA.
There, it's good to hear your voice.
Again, review.
Just a quick reminder, everybody might want to mute their mics just so we don't get any extra
Well,
background.
I'll be going to Boston on Monday for
Hey,
that.
Brett,
Unfortunately, I'm in New York for a funeral.
there we go.
Seth,
Sorry about that.
No problem.
All right, we all want to go to Boston.
Boston too.
Anyhow, all right, I managed to make it through that. Ground operations. Stan?
Okay. Hello there. And so Seth, you're continuing to run the slides, is that correct?
Yep, just say next slide. I will key through them.
All right, and my audio is coming through, I assume.
Yep, you're loud and clear there, Stan.
Thank you. All right, folks, hello again. Much of this is very similar to previous years, but I will hit it. I'll try to hit it kind of quickly for everybody who is new, and as a review, and then as either Seth or Steve mentioned, it's been so long I can't even remember. The fundamental big difference this year is in the handling of the tow Zulu tow rope, which has got a hook and not a reel. So we'll talk about that in a sec. Okay, next slide, Seth. And these will look, like I said, similar to last year. Field ops, we used to use the term qualified field operations personnel. We don't use that term anymore. We're breaking that down into the same 3 roles as we did last year. I listed, and I neglected to check with Ron and Brett to make sure that they're still willing to assist me in this in the operation of the chief field managers. This is the group that oversees the training of the field managers. So that's what we do. Field managers that we need during operations, we need to have a field manager on the field. That's the minimum. That's a requirement to have a field manager on the field for commercial and training flights. The field manager is an adult aviator, and we made it. We put the qualification in there that the field manager be an adult because we don't want to be putting the responsibility of field management onto our numerous youth or youth members. An adult and an aviator, because it needs to be somebody who has a knowledge of the airspace traffic, radio communications, and aviation related situational awareness. The field manager oversees the field operations, supervises the ground support personnel, and basically runs the field during the time that the field manager is operating. All aviator club members are required to train as field managers and are required to sign up for 2 shifts, 4-hour shifts per quarter to remain flight qualified. That is that was a board decision to and that was already in place last year. That to be flight qualified, you've got to be signed up. It doesn't mean you necessarily have to have done your shifts. If you're signed up for a shift next weekend, then for during the quarter, then you're qualified to fly. But you need to have signed up for 2 shifts a quarter to come out and help run the field, because Ron and Brett and I shouldn't be the only ones field managing. Now, the ground support position is kind of the next level down in the hierarchy. And so it's not just the field manager running the field as a single operator. Ground support people come in. They must be a club member, and the reason for that is because of insurance. Anytime we have any place where we could incur an insured loss, if we ding up a wing, if we ding a glider, if we damage a tow plane, something like that, the people involved, in order for that loss to be covered, the people involved have to have been club members, and that in order to be covered, in order for a loss to be covered on our insurance, that's the connection there. That's the requirement for being a club member. However, they can be youth, they can be pre-solo students, they can be associate members, which includes families and adults and so on, and they don't have to be aviators. So the requirement there that is driven by the insurance is that ground support people who are going to have any contact with the operation, moving tow ropes, moving gliders, and so on, have to be club members. The ground support people are really the ones who do the work, run the line, what we used to call line boys, line pilots, line boys and line girls, running the line under the supervision of the field manager. And the training for the ground support position, again, this is not a change. This is the same as last year that we invoked the ground badge program, which there's a sequence of steps and qualifications to get qualified through the ground badge program. Next one, Seth.
Hey, Stan.
Yes, go ahead.
Question on reciprocal members. Where do they fit into that outline on that last slide?
Yeah, that's a good one. I would think that a reciprocal member. Can you go back one there, Seth? I would think that, and I'm thank you for the question that I haven't thought about yet, Corey. I would think that a reciprocal member should not act as a ground support person unless they are through the training. I mean, that's the hard and literal interpretation here. Now, a reciprocal member, Alex, who brings in his own glider, he's essentially running his own glider and assisting with the operation of his own glider. So that's a different thing. If he's got an insurance loss, he's covered under his own insurance, not under ours. I think that's open for discussion. Go ahead.
Well, let me suggest that reciprocal members are members per Hood River Soaring policy.
Absolutely correct.
Therefore, they are covered by insurance.
But fair enough. That's
our insurance. Therefore, they're absolutely expected to participate in the field ops.
Okay.
Right. Now,
let's.
Yeah. The expectation of 2 shifts per quarter. That's I think that's our local members, our Hood River Soaring local members.
That's how I take it. Yeah.
Yeah, so reciprocal members, I don't think we've decided that they're expected to serve any required numbers of shifts, but I absolutely would expect them to help out when they are participating in Hood River, that they are insured and that they are helping out.
Fair point. And the thing to remember there is that they would always be operating under the supervision of a field manager. So the field manager can do ground briefings and sort of evaluate needs at the time. So that's absolutely right.
Bingo. Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Corey. And yeah, if somebody has a significant thing to add, don't be afraid to jump in here. I don't mind. Although if we're going to start, I will try to regulate us here. If we start to get into little points and stuff, I may say we'll take that offline to decide. So that was a good one. Thank you, Corey. All right, Seth, on to the next. Here we get into the field manager training. Now, this is the training to be a field manager. This can be, and now we hear already, this is a little ambiguous, any adult HRS member that has flown with HRS. So again, we emphasize that these need to be aviators. So anyone who's flown with HRS at Hood River in the prior calendar year as a glider rated pilot or post solo student glider pilot as a field manager candidate. Again, though we have the requirement that the field manager be an adult. So those post solo student glider pilots, you still have to be an adult to be a field manager candidate. All such members, this just reiterates, expected to do the field manager training and sign up for 2 shifts, 4 hours each during the quarters, and we've defined the quarters here, 3-month quarters during the season. We effectively take the winter quarter off from that requirement because it's very on and off in the winter, and it's very much kind of come as you are, and if it happens, it happens. But it's not a quarter in which we require all of our members to sign up for field manager shifts. Field manager candidates. So the pertinent sections of the ground badge training for field manager candidates are still expected to go through the Soaring Safety Foundation Wing Runner course. This is anybody who's going to touch any glider on our field should do that, and anybody who's in any kind of glider operation should have done that anyway. And then review our HS operations manual, specifically the ground operations section for our specific Hood River Soaring and Hood River Airport details. The briefing and checkout from the G Field Manager is going to involve, specifics to, first of all, general knowledge, but also then specifics for the Hood River field. What is our specific operating environment? What are the patterns for the different runway operations, typical operations, and how we interact with power traffic, because we are a hybrid mixed airfield. We have everything from gliders and home builds all the way up to corporate jets occasionally, you know, and Pilatus and things like that, and medevac choppers that I've talked to on the radio. So it's a I'm not going to call it complex, but it can be a mixed environment at times, and you have to be ready for that stuff and be able to handle it. So radio communication, traffic awareness, situational awareness. I'm going to hit that point again, but that's the overarching thing here for field managers, which we also want to train down to the ground personnel, is situational awareness. Just always being aware of what's going on immediately around you, further out between you and onto the runway environment, and even further out from that up into the airspace environment. Just keeping that picture in your head of that whole environment. That's really important, and it's a big part of safe operations. Aircraft ground handling procedures and launch procedures as well include, including all the details of hooking up and wing running and so on. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail here on what those procedures are. I've got a little bit coming in some of the other slides, but that's the stuff that we will hit and we'll train individually on site. And it's also stuff that's in the operations manual that everybody should be reviewing as part of their annual flight certification and readiness. All right, next one, Seth. Okay, now we're kind of going through the hierarchy here. We talked about field manager training and then the ground badge training to be ground badge or to be ground support personnel. So first statement refers back to field manager. All adult HRS member, HRS, and again, I should have switched that to say all adult HRS aviators should train to the field manager level. All others, youth or students or associates who are willing and able, our students are expected to, and our families and associate members are welcome to train up through the ground badge program to become ground support personnel. The elements are here. I won't go through them individually. We bring our students through this process, the government ID training for how to sign up, on our website and the flight entry form and so on. The same things we talked about there, the Soaring Safety Foundation and the HRS Operations Manual, which are all of our aviators should be doing every year. And then there's a supervised time by ground support ground support time supervised by a field manager, so that over a period of several different days, so that you can work with different tow pilots, different types of glider operations and so on, because we want to make sure that our ground support people get sort of a wide spectrum of our operations. There's a ground lesson with the CFIG and Condor to complete the IACRA. This is for students that we are assuming are moving forward into flight training. And then an introductory lesson via Team Up. Again, these are for our introductory students who are coming through, if you have not already scheduled some flight time. Okay. Again, I'll take small questions at the end. Any big structural questions on any of this so far? And if not, Seth, we'll go ahead to the next one. I want to emphasize here the idea of crew resource management, and it's something that our commercial and especially our Part 121 pilots, Seth and Jeff Curtis and everybody who's done that, crew resource management is a big part of safety culture in aviation. And just because we are often single pilots in a cockpit doesn't mean that we're not still working with a crew as part of our safety scenario and part of what keeps us safe. In the case of glider operations, I mean, you can't just go out as a single pilot and jump in a glider and go, self-launchers aside. That's both a social advantage because it's fun to be out there with other people, but it's also a safety advantage because you've got ground personnel who are there to be a part of your eyes, ears, and briefing and brain and thinking process to talk and brief safety issues. And you've got tow pilots who are also involved in the various decisions and so on. That whole group, we try to emphasize that is a safety team. Okay. Ground personnel have certain responsibilities and I'm going to call it authorities, and I'm going to be careful with that. But essentially, everybody has no-go authority for safety. Okay, I don't care if it's a just newly trained ground person. If there is a safety problem, they are not only authorized but expected to call a halt. Okay, and to know the hand signals and to call a halt. If you see the spoilers are still out on the glider as the takeoff roll starts, that's a problem, and that hopefully that gets witnessed earlier on. But at any point in the process where a safety problem is being observed, anybody on this team of ground personnel, pilot and command tow pilot, can call a halt for safety. That is fundamental. Okay. This idea, I'm going to get into the second bullet under ground personnel there. I'm going to keep saying the term situational awareness, maintaining situational awareness. Everybody who is keeping the big picture in their mind is helping to facilitate the safe operation. Okay. You might be the only person who notices a no radio glider coming in on the downwind as we're starting to pull a glider onto the runway pavement. And if you're the person who sees that, you're the person who speaks up and says, hey, here's the situation, and makes the whole team aware of that. Again, hopefully everybody is keeping that awareness and everybody is watching out for that. But all it takes to break an accident chain is to save, is to find one of those links and save yourself and stop the operation at that point instead of letting the operation go on. Ground personnel have responsibilities for ground hookup, coordinating tow plane, wing running, and so on. I think that's pretty straightforward. And then we've also adding retrieve the drop tow rope in here. That's a responsibility on the third bullet there. Generally contributing to the smooth flow of operations, and also the ground personnel are the public face of our club. So when our visitors come in to do commercial flights, to do scenic flights, their experience starts with us as people. Okay, so when they come in, we're the first people they talk to, and if we pay good attention to them and make them feel welcome, then that's the start of a good experience for them at our airfield. We may have neighbors come around. We see people who pull up in cars who happen to see the tow plane going off because they were eating a burger over at Twin Peaks, and they come by and see us. We could potentially turn them into a friendly neighbor. We could turn them into a scenic passenger. We might even be able to turn them into a training soaring pilot and a future glider pilot. So, checking out, kind of keeping an eye on who's watching us. And then sometimes we have neighbors come around who may not be so enthusiastic. They may want to talk to us about noise or something like that. It's important to stay professional and kind and just listen. If you do nothing else, listen and acknowledge. Okay. So that's your, as a ground person, you're the public face. The pilot in command, the glider pilot in command, of course, also has no-go authority for safety. The pilot in command is responsible for the aircraft, for pre-flighting, for checking the airworthiness, for cleaning afterwards, and importantly, and this is not a change from before, but I'll reemphasize it again, for ground handling of the aircraft all the way back to the chocks. Okay, if you've flown an aircraft, you are responsible for it all the way back to whatever the chocks are. Now, the other way to handle that is to have a positive and acknowledged handoff to the next pilot in command. So we may park it in the grass out in front of the residential area there. That may be a choice that you coordinate with the ground personnel. And so what we're looking for is a positive handoff. Just like when you're training with an instructor or with another pilot, you have a positive handoff of controls. When we are transferring control of an aircraft, the pilot in command is finished with it, you need to have a positive handoff to whoever is taking responsibility for it next. That's likely to be the next pilot in command. It's possible that could be the ground personnel or the field manager. That's okay too. But you want to have that. You want to have a positive handoff and not just walk away from it and assume somebody else is taking care of it. Always communicate about that. The launch signal between the tow pilot, the glider, pilot in command, and the wing runner, that's implicit agreement that all three of those entities are ready to go. The glider, pilot in command, is ready for that tow rope to get tense and to start taking off. The ground support wing runner, who is rotating his or her arm, has done checks on the airspace, looking down the runway and making sure that there are no other problems. And the tow pilot has done his or her checks and is ready to go power on. So that launch signal, all three of those things have to come in order for a launch to happen. And again, that's emphasis on the fact that that's a team agreement there, that a launch is ready to move forward. Okay, I think Seth, next one. These are what I'm calling continued areas of emphasis. This slide is not much different from last year's slide, but the next one has our main new area of emphasis. But I do want to again keep our emphasis on these important areas. First one is that there is a 50-foot boundary area around the runways. Okay, that area we consider to be active runway. Okay. You step over the line, you're on the active runway. If there's an operation on the runway, you're on the runway when you're in the 50-foot line. So you shouldn't be standing there unless you are, if it's a glider launch, if you're a wing runner, that's the only reason for, or a field manager supervising a wing runner. Those are the only reasons to be out there. If a Cessna or something is landing, you should not be in that 50-foot area. You should be cleared out of that 50-foot area. We usually use the yellow cones. We kind of set the yellow cones out. It's certainly near the glider parking area, and those define the line that should be respected as the 50-foot line. We should not be having family and visitors and stuff out there. I mean, a lot of times people want to come out to the runway, and it may happen on an ad hoc basis, but we want to discourage it. Okay. Anybody who is observing, anybody who is not directly involved in a launch operation or a recovery operation should be not only off the 50-foot line, but they shouldn't be wandering around. They should be along the tree line. That's the ideal, is to have people all the way back along the tree line. Anybody entering that active runway zone, we were not real hard over on this last year, but I want to emphasize this one this year. We've got some extra high vis vests and shirts and stuff out there. Anybody operating out there should have those on. We may color code that. We are not yet. Let's first step, let's make sure everybody's wearing them. Okay, not worry too much about colors just yet. But that again goes to safety and the ability of anybody operating in the runway environment, especially, for example, the tow pilot, to have quick awareness of where ground personnel might be moving around. Second area is focus and situational awareness. Again, there's that term I'm talking about. Focus, stay focused on the task at hand. If there's not an actual operation going on, still keep your awareness, keep your eyes up, try to imagine where the tow plane is at the moment. Imagine where our gliders are. They're up on the ridge. Somebody may be returning. You may have heard radio calls that somebody's coming back. Keep that awareness and keep your focus on the operation. Let's see. Yeah, all of these things on the second bullet, watch for ground movement. You may see other traffic coming out of the north ramp who's taxiing on the north taxiway to get ready to power traffic that's getting ready to take off. Keep them in your awareness, because that's something we can sometimes advise them. Hey, I've got a glider on right down and behind you, which you can't see if you're sitting in the run-up area looking south. Be aware of that. Please don't pull onto the runway, because we got somebody coming in. Being aware of that kind of stuff just little things like that can make a difference in stopping an incident from happening. Think ahead, try to get there ahead of time. If you know a glider's coming in and you're sitting at the picnic table, probably time to get up and jump in the golf cart and kind of get a few hundred feet down the runway so that it doesn't take you as long to get there, get onto the runway and get them cleared off. And then the fourth bullet here under focus and situational awareness, again, awareness, tow plane and propeller awareness. Look, we're here to work with gliders, but we're also working around at least one power plane. Okay, that thing's got a big fan spinning around on the front of it. And that is we need to be careful. Okay. My standard policy is, as the tow plane is moving around, I try to remain, as a ground person, I try to remain stationary whenever possible if the tow plane is maneuvering. And you'll see me sometimes, I'll be busy. And then once the tow plane starts coming on, I will stand kind of at the nose of the glider, a little off on the side of the glider, and I will just stop and stand there. Because what this does for the tow pilots is it removes sort of mental clutter from them. If they've got a ground person moving around while they are taxiing, it's one more thing that the tow pilot has to keep track of. Okay. If I'm staying stationary, tow pilot sees me, tow pilot notices that I'm stationary and is still probably checking for me, but it's one less load on the tow pilot's processing that the tow pilot has to do. Once the tow pilot comes up and gets turned around, they come to a stop, then I start moving around. When I'm moving around the tow plane as a ground person, I am trying to stay behind the line of the wings. Okay. There's not much reason in most cases, there's not much reason that a ground personnel would need to go up and be out forward of the wings. If there is, make sure you have an understanding with the tow pilot. You could be talking to him on the radio or some kind of give him a hand signal to stop or something like that. And make sure you're making at least eye contact with the tow pilot to know that you're doing something up there. But there's generally no reason that you should be forward of the wing on the tow plane. So Ty, can you want to jump in here? I'm just going to put you on the spot here. Are these reasonable? Do you want to add anything to that kind of movements with the tow plane and so on?
Very reasonable. The one thing I was going to add that's not quite related to what you're talking about at this moment was a lot of times we'll have an aircraft holding short of 2.5 when we're staged up. And I try to let that aircraft know if I notice that they're there. I'll let them know that after we take off, give us a good 1 minute, maybe even more on climb out before you take the runway, just in case we have a rope break and that glider's coming back. We don't want to head on collisions. That's the only thing I was going to add.
Yeah, that's a great one, actually. I don't know that I've got that in here, but I'll try to remember to put that in for next year. But yeah, that's another thing. And that goes to the situational awareness. If I've got somebody who's ready to jump right on the runway pavement as a glider has taken off, I will get on the radio and I'll explicitly say, hey, you mind waiting a minute, because we might have, it's always possible to have a rope break and they'll be coming and doing a downwind landing on runway.
And it's really not that long of a wait until the glider is high enough to be able to just fly a downwind.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah,
Usually
I
less than a minute.
kind of use my judgment and I'll tell them, yeah, you're good to go. And hey, thanks a lot for watching out for us. That's the phrase I use a lot on the radio with other pilots is thanks for watching out for us, because that is it's neighborly. They're usually good natured about doing that kind of thing. And it just makes our operation smoother. It makes people want to help us out and want to work around us. So that's a good thing. I think that's it. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Last one. Use of equipment should only be to further the flight and the ground operations. This also goes to focus situational awareness. The golf cart. I know we have young members who are not yet even learning to drive, and they love it, and they can use the golf cart, but they shouldn't be taking joy rides in it. Use it for what it's needed for. Same thing with cell phones. And this isn't just our, this is I have had as many adults as I've had teenagers out there, kind of with their heads in their cell phones. Use by ground support should be, please be thoughtful about it. The idea, your focus should be on the operation if you're operating ground support. Now, if you need to call your parents to come pick you up or talk to Sarah because you've got a question about a scenic flight or something like that, of course, that's part of the that's part of the operation. But I don't want to see people out there, with their scrolling through Instagram while potential error operations are going on.
And the golf cart should be always parked past the 50-foot line.
Right. So yeah, always move the golf cart off of the active runway, and again, use your judgment here. If you've got time to get it all the way up to the tree line, that's actually ideal, just to get it as far out of the way as possible. But yeah, keep the golf cart off of the active runway, which means 50 feet away. Thanks, Russ. I think that was Russ. All right, Seth, next one. So that was continued areas of emphasis. And this is a new area of emphasis, which was mentioned earlier, which is on tow Zulu. We do not have a tow rope reel. And we realize now on one hand that was a great luxury. And on the other hand, as I was out there in the later part of this season and thinking this is going to be miserable and I'm going to hate this, and it turned out not to be all that bad. You get into a rhythm, and it was kind of a familiar rhythm. Big thing that helps that is we tend to run with 2 ropes. Okay, so that tow plane will take off with the glider. They'll go do their thing. Glider releases. Tow plane comes around. And I'm leaving this up to the tow pilots. This is not a declaration of what tow pilots have to do, but what I was finding was the typical tow pilot choice about dropping the rope. What was to drop the rope, number one, and typically what tow pilots were doing was on short final when they were at an appropriate spot over. I'm calling it I think I call it the grass dirt field here, the grass dirt area. What I mean there is beyond on the extended center line, back on the approach area of, let's say, runway 25, that grassy dirt area there between let's say the runway lights and the dirt road that comes around with the orchard. That's what I'm calling the grass dirt area in this area. What I was finding was that it seemed like the tow pilots were getting pretty comfortable with dropping the rope on short final as they're coming in, reaching down, popping the rope, and then continuing their approach down to the grass landing area or the pavement area if they chose. Both of those are appropriate. It's the same area of field there. Again, I'll leave it to you tow pilots. If you want to, I've had tow pilots choose to come do a low pass, drop it, and then go around again. That's completely a tow pilot choice, and that's a man safety first, and that's important. In the case, regardless, once that rope is dropped out there, we need to go pick it up. Now, the fact that we're operating with 2 ropes means that when that first one gets dropped, we've already got another one up near the operations area to use. And so I generally lay that out in kind of a W shape, which I'll show you, we'll train you on that. But a W shape with, imagine the two rings at the top of the W, and just kind of lay it out in a couple of zigzags with those rings facing towards the runway. And I'm sorry, I didn't make a diagram for this, but what that does, if it's laid out and staged that way, is that when the tow plane moves into place and the glider is placed into place, then one of the ground people can go kind of grab the 2 rings and maybe the middle part of the W on the rope and just pull that whole assembly out onto the runway, with one ring facing towards the tow plane and the other ring kind of facing towards the glider. And that's what I found in my operation, is that was a pretty good way of bringing it out there, not getting it tangled up, and being able to take the one end off, hook it up to the back of the tow plane, take the other end off, and have it ready to hook to the glider. All that can happen while that other rope is still laying out in the field. So having 2 ropes really helps us with that. So that it's not a panic to go get to go retrieve the one rope. The best practice for retrieval, now I will say that Steve Morrow built us a beautiful set of reels on the back of the golf cart for the tow ropes. First time we went out there to do it, we actually went out to the tow rope, hooked it up to the reel, wound it in, spent a bunch of time doing that, and then brought it all the way back. We stopped doing that because that puts you on the extended runway center line under potentially incoming traffic for an uncomfortable period of time. What I recommend is, and what we've been doing is, I go to one end of drive the golf cart up to one end of the tow rope, quickly jump out, grab that ring and hold it in my left hand, and then get back in the golf cart, drive up to the other end of the tow rope, grab that ring in the same hand, hold it, and just drive off. And just drag the rope, at least get it off of the extended runway center line. Okay, that exposes our ground personnel for the minimum amount of time, and then you can decide what you want to do with it from there. Frankly, what I was doing was I was just dragging it all the way back over, holding the rings so I'm not bouncing the rings on the ground, and just drag the rope back up to the operations area, which is only a few tens of yards.
Join the meeting.
100 yards or whatever up there. This will all be a part of the training, but I'm giving you the general vibe here so that you sort of know what to expect when we go out there. The situational awareness and focus point here is that you're putting yourself not on the runway, but you're putting yourself under the approach path on the extended center line of the runway. So I want to see people checking, and I don't want to see people underneath there while there is somebody coming over. Okay, so you're checking final just like you would if you were to cross a runway while taxiing, or anything like that, you're gonna take a check. If there's somebody coming in, you're gonna wait. You're not gonna operate under approaching traffic, or for that matter, under departing traffic if somebody happens to be departing on runway 7. Once you've got clear and you've got time, then you jump out there with a golf cart, grab the ends of the tow rope, quickly drag it off, and then you can operate while you're off of the active area of the runway and out from under the extended center line. And the whole idea is to minimize that exposure time out there. I think that's it. Most of the rest of what we'll do with the rope drop is, yeah, I see your arrow there, Seth. I'm going to hit that point too. I want every time field manager, ground personnel come on shift, or we're having a switch of field managers or a switch of tow personnel, there should always be some kind of face-to-face briefing. It doesn't have to be a half hour. You don't have to necessarily shut down the tow plane, but I want people to think in terms of, if we're having a handoff of responsibility as field management, for example, go have a voice-to-voice conversation with the tow pilot and say, hey, here's what we're doing with the tow rope operation. It's working well. How do you like to drop your tow rope? What do you want me to do? In both directions. Make sure that conversation is happening in both directions. Okay. All right. I think
Hey,
that's it.
Stan.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to throw one more thing in. You said about leaving the tow rope while you're doing the other one. Just make sure that tow rope did not maybe carry too far and it's laying across the taxiway for aircraft on the north taxiway. They don't want to be crossing that tow rope, and especially maybe picking up a tow ring or something.
Absolutely. So important part of that is the tow pilots. If you are choosing to do the drop in that fashion and drop it just on short final there, probably better to drop it a tiny bit earlier than to wait too much longer later. And Jeff and Ty and you guys, you're probably getting used to that. I hope you will, with your fellow tow pilots, kind of work out, hey, yeah, if you pull at about, when the tow plane is, I don't know where, if your tow plane is halfway through that field, or your tow plane is coming in over the road, or wherever it is, when the tow plane drops the rope, the leading edge of the rope continues forward in kind of an arc. Okay. So you can't wait too late, because if you're coming in and you wait until the tow plane's like over the taxiway, yeah, that tow rope, the forward leading edge of that tow rope is going to continue forward in the arc. It kind of continues forward, and then kind of the rest of the tow rope kind of bunches up a little behind it, and the whole thing then kind of falls. But yeah, it does continue forward. So I'm hoping you guys will work out. And then also, like for a new tow pilot who hasn't done a lot of drops, as a field manager keeping situational awareness, Jeff's right. I will watch and see where that tow rope drops. I'll kind of watch for those drops every time that I have, every time that I have the bandwidth to do that, because number one, I want to make sure it doesn't end up on the taxiway, because that's a critical issue. Number two, I can give feedback to the tow pilot. If that leading edge ring drops pretty close to the taxiway, I'll give that tow pilot a little feedback and say, yeah, you missed the taxiway, but it came pretty close, so you could afford to pull a little earlier and have it be further out in the field. So we'll just keep talking about that stuff, but it's been working pretty well as far as I could tell from working with a number of different tow pilots with that drop. Thank you, Jeff. All right, Seth. I will not go into a lot of detail here, because this is the standard stuff, and I expect people will review our ground, our operations manual. This stuff should be covered in there. The one thing I added here is in the first bullet item, it used to say support will unspool the tow rope from the reel, and I turned that into either A or B. We'll either unspool it if we happen to be using tow 7, or we'll bring the next rope in from the staging area if we're working with tow Zulu. Weak links are the standard use of weak links. Notice tow Zulu has a hook on the back, and the requirement is that you use 2 weak links here. And I want to reemphasize now, I've been talking about ground operations. I want to talk to pilots. Pilots, if you are flying a glider, which requires weak links, you are required to find the weak link, get it in place. If there are 2 of them, you need to do 2 of them, so on. It has happened, and I try to be as friendly, as helpful as possible. That we'll get out there in the L33 or a light glider, and the pilot will go, "Oh my gosh, can you grab me a weak link?" Well, that should be thought about at the same time as you're checking your seatbelts, harnesses, making sure if you're wearing a parachute, that it's snugged down, that you've gone through your pre-flight. The weak link should be a part of your pre-flight. Please consider that the availability of a weak link is part of your pre-flight and is part of the necessary equipment. And please help us out by taking care of that in advance, making sure you've got it covered. Again, talk to the field manager. Maybe there's already one up on the end of the rope because there's another light glider up and we can say, all good, there's one on there already. But please consider that as part of the pre-flight and take care of that before we get out to the runway and say, oh my gosh, what's happening. So that's up to the pilot and command. That's the responsibility of the pilot and command. We will help you. Just talk to us about it. Standard Schweitzer and toast. We have a kind of a tradition of making sure that the ground person and the pilot both have a positive communication about big ring or small ring. You generally can't fit a Schweitzer ring into a toast aircraft, but you can unfortunately fit the tiny little toast ring onto the end of a Schweitzer hook, and that's a bad situation because it'll get jammed on there. So just the pilot and the ground person who is hooking up should have a positive exchange of big ring, small ring, and before the hookup. And Paul, I don't think anybody, I had a question in the chat here, do we get a steak dinner if we drop the tour up into a 5-gallon bucket? I don't think anybody will ever get closer than Rick Kemper did, where he dropped the tow rope. I had left the reel sitting out there and he dropped it, and it actually was touching the reel and with the tow ring within about 6 feet of it. And I declare the contest is over because nobody will ever get
challenge accepted.
All right, next one. This is more about weak links. I think we had probably too much for this, more than is necessary in this presentation for on weak links, but this is all standard weak link terminology and usage here. I don't think there's anything about our use of weak links that is any different. The final point there being the tow rope, either the tow rope strength by itself for a heavier aircraft or a weak link strength if you are with a lighter aircraft. Either way, you need that strength to be within 80 to 200% of the gross weight of the glider being launched. That's all standard stuff. We like our weak links made with the locking Brummel I-splice is preferred in every case that we can do that. So, all right, go ahead, Seth. Again, standard stuff. So I'm going to say that this is stuff that we as glider pilots should already know, that our students will be trained upon. So I won't go over them one at a time and turn this into a training session per se. Although I will emphasize, I always emphasize the hold and the stop signals. Arms straight out to the side for hold. I think we also use, I don't know if this is standard or not, but as we are giving the take up slack signal at the mid left there, I think we often, when we're doing take up slack, we'll often just put our hands straight up once the rope is tight and it's time for the tow plane to stop.
And Stan, when you're given that signal for the take up slack or to begin takeoff, make sure you're like perpendicular to the tow plane so they can see your arms spinning around instead of.
Absolutely.
I never liked these photos that they use because I feel like that model's head should be turned to the side.
Right. That's a good point. So the idea is you're looking at this model in these pictures, you're looking at this model as if you're looking back from the tow plane. And I would like to see the take up guy slack. I would like to see his head making eye contact with me. Is that what you're saying, Ty? Because his hands should be moving in a plane so that I can see it moving big from the tow plane. That's the other point, is that I'm going to model here, but as you're doing it, you don't want to do this for take up slack. I want to see it all the way up 90 degrees, 90 degrees out here, 90 degrees out there. Make it big as you can. Put your hat in your hand if you want anything, because remember that the tow pilots are looking in potentially a relatively small, potentially vibrating mirror and trying to interpret what's going on here. Tow pilots will talk as the season goes on about how that's working for you. If you need it, at times I've been gotten on the radio and said, if you say, hey, I just can't see, I'll get on the radio and say, take up slack, 20 feet, 10 feet, 5 feet, stop, kind of thing. And so we'll play that by ear out on the field as we go. If you need the tow plane to stop, hold position, first thing you do is, if you're almost ready to launch and the wing is up, first thing you do is put the wing down. right? Because if the tow pilot sees the wing down, that should be the first signal of stopping. Next thing I do once I got that wing out of my hands, put my arm straight out, which is the very middle picture here, which is stop, don't go anywhere, stop, okay? If you've got an immediate problem, waving your hands over your head is a stop. And if you want the glider to release, you can give, or the tow pilot to shut the engine down if there's some kind of problem, give the slicing thing. So those are the important ones. How to stop an operation. This goes back to the safety team concept of anybody who's doing the ground operation should be able to keep an idea and stop. I'm seeing some questions here. Kaz asked if the rope is not Kevlar. Our rope is, I think, Dacron. If somebody correct me if I'm wrong about that, but our rope that we use, well, I'm sorry, we're using either Dacron or poly at the moment. I think our yellow ones are poly, but they're generally a strength of around 2,000 pounds breaking. Steve or Ty or anybody, can you help me confirm that? I don't want to send out bad.
That's correct about the rope. We have braided Dacron and braided polypropylene.
Okay, thank you, Russ.
And I was under the impression that this newest rope we got has a breaking strength of 1,400 pounds.
The yellow poly, Jeff?
No, the Dacron.
The white Dacron that we had in the past was 2,000. So unless you've got a new one that you're talking about that I haven't seen yet.
Yeah, I wish Ron was here. I think he ordered a new batch there from Wings and Wheels.
Oh,
We do.
like the weird thin stuff.
Yes, we do have a roll of that, and it has not been used as far as I know.
I believe that's correct. I have not seen that used yet, and there's we can talk about whether we want to or not. But yeah, that's fair. Okay, yeah. The other thing, so a couple other questions from Paul Peterson. Bright paddle. I believe we have had a paddle in the back of the golf cart. Extra tools like that sometimes are a pain to carry around and sometimes get lost or dropped or something. So we can, let's take that one offline and talk about it. I agree, having something in your hand can make it easier to see. And then Fox points out that sometimes having another person mirror signals by the tow plane. We were doing that for a while when the tow plane was, when the radio was not even working in the tow plane. So these are all things that we will work out depending on how many ground personnel we have and so on. And Corey says we have paddles. So yeah, I think there are paddles around, so we can get those out. Okay, Seth, let's move on. I'm taking up too much time here. Oh, it's perfect timing then. So quick question. Okay, I'm going to go back to Corey. He says we love having a second guy. So what we were doing for a while, I will dig on that one a little bit. What we were doing is when we have enough ground personnel, is if we've got a wing runner and another person is basically released from the area of the glider, what I was often doing was jogging up next to the tow plane, like abeam the tow plane wing. And then I would just mirror exactly hand signals that the wing runner is still running things. The wing runner still says go, wing runner can say stop. I would just mirror those signals so the tow pilot can just look out the side, look out down the wing and see me. And so that Corey, I didn't realize whether that was like stupid or whether you guys like that, but Corey's saying in the chat here that they like having that. And so if we got the personnel to do it, we can do it. Yeah, having the radio now working in Tow Zulu, I think is going to make a lot of these things a lot better, because there were times when the tow pilots were working with a handheld radio strapped to their chest and things were just not good communication. That's been fixed now, so I think that'll get better. So a quick question from Gary Gross: at what point do you raise the wing? Some wait until the slack is out of the rope. At Willamette Valley, we raise the wing before taking up slack. I'm going to have to go. It's so automatic. I will if the glider pilot is ready. I do not raise the wing until the glider pilot is ready for a takeoff. Okay, unless the glider pilot is completely ready for takeoff, the wing stays down. That's really the thing that lets the wing go up. And so you say you raise the wing before taking up slack. We will take up slack with the wing still on the ground. Which just makes things a little more efficient. And it's not, we don't intend to rush, but it's something we do so that it makes us a little more efficient, especially if we have other traffic, which is different from working on a glider only field, right? And so I will allow the tow plane to take up slack with the wing down. The wing down is the signal to the tow pilot, though, that this is not a takeoff yet. Okay, so that's our standard for operation, is that we will allow it to take up slack with the wing down. but that's not yet ready for takeoff. Okay.
Yeah, I think you're right, Stan. That really is determined not by, anything other than the pilot says the glider is ready for takeoff.
Right.
So whether you're
Yeah.
taking it slack with the wing down or the wing up, the wing doesn't go up until the glider pilot has the thumbs up. He's ready for takeoff.
Absolutely right. Okay, I think everybody will be happy that it's time for me to shut up now. Thank you much. And any other questions along the way there?
Hey, thanks, Stan, for presenting. And one other thing, quick rule of thumb for when you're out there and you're trying to judge how far the tow plane's going to be out to take that slack. We've got a 200-foot rope, and the runway centerline stripes are 120 feet, and the space between them is 80 feet. So that's 200 feet. So I give you a good rule of thumb to judge how far out the tow plane needs to be to take that slack out.
Yeah, and that's a great way to judge all kinds of things. Like if somebody wants to know how far down that they're landing, where do they touch down, and so on. You can just count the stripes, and you're 200 feet center to center on the stripes. So, all right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Stan. Moving on. What have we done here? More arrow tow procedures. Ty, I think this is your section here. I will hand it off to you.
All right, cool. Thanks. I just preface a lot of this with, we will have a tow pilot specific meeting here coming up in the next weeks, where we'll cover more of the tow plane operations. We'll use words like oil pressure and battery starter, and it's all very complicated. But that being said, we'll touch on a few things here in the next couple slides. So go ahead. We kind of rehashed everything there that you see on the left, but on the right, you'll see a couple of the important ones, especially from a glider pilot's perspective, looking towards us in flight. You see us rocking our wings. You should all know that. I know that a couple of the examiners have asked us tow pilots to do that on the private pilot check rides. Rock our wings, and that's your cue to release immediately. I don't have a lot of situational awareness behind me when I'm towing to see if you're rocking your wings. I'll probably feel something, and I'll hit you up on the radio and ask if everything's all right. We do brief our tow speed prior to the flight. If it's a glider that I'm unfamiliar with towing, I'll say, I'll ask before the flight, what speed do you want me at? But for the most part, the 232, the K21, the LaBelle, the ones that we're towing the most, we're pretty comfortable with those. With the student pilots, especially on their solos, I have not had any big, I haven't had any issues at all. But the top two on the right, the tow plane, please turn left, tow plane, please turn right. Let me know if you're going to box the wake, so I know that whether you're boxing the wake or if you are trying to steer me around. Some of the more experienced pilots out there, I kind of let them drive me wherever they want to go. Kelly, Tim, Mark, Steve, even Jonathan, Russ, all you guys. Some of you guys have pretty specific areas where you want to get towed to, especially on a good wave day. So feel free to steer us around a little bit. But if you are going to box the wake, just kind of let the tow pilot know first, so that they know what you're up to back there.
Hey, Ty, real quick one. I will sometimes hang a little bit off to your left just to take some pressure off your right rudder. Do you care? Does that matter? Does it help at all, or is that?
I haven't noticed.
Okay.
It's yeah, I haven't really noticed.
I love it when I'm towing the 232.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, if you're towing the school bus like that, it probably helps a little bit. And I'll also add, I'm maybe the chief tow pilot, but I'm definitely not the most experienced tow pilot either. I have about 200 glider tows. So I appreciate any input from some of the other tow pilots. Slide. Right, and those were the big ones that we were hitting on there. Cool. So the staging and takeoff, I think Stan hammered this pretty hard, but this probably is the most dangerous thing that we do at the Glider Club. It's the most people involved, doing the most important part, getting everybody linked together. There's other airplanes involved. There could be people waiting. Try to be in a hurry, but don't feel too rushed. Okay, it's a public airport. We are trying to play by everybody else's rules here too. I let the dog in here. Cool. So next slide. All right. So I have a few notes on this one. The first is it starts out at point number 1, and that's kind of where your flight begins. Long before takeoff, we're going to be, we'll just kind of discuss, where do you want to go? Does the tow pilot know where you want to go? Is it a ridge tow? Is it a pattern tow? Are you going to Underwood? Do you want me to take you to Middle Mountain? Every day is going to be a little bit different. Typically, we'll have a pretty good idea where everybody's going, but make sure we know, so we're not on downwind and wondering, where you want us to take you. Let us know what tow speed you want. Some of you Willamette Valley guys, if you bring your own glider out and we're not familiar, make sure you let us know what speed you're looking for, whether that's in knots or miles per hour. What are the current conditions? What's your glider's weight? Do you need a weak link? Make sure that you have all that figured out. Take a look at your I'm safe checklist. And then once you've before you go out there, the ground crew and the person in charge for the day, they'll let's make sure we all have good SA. Don't feel rushed. We get some busy days out there, especially if there's not a lot of wind. Hood River is known for its wind, but if you get a calm day, then you get a lot of people from all over coming in to have a burger up at Twin Peaks or go to Wham or anything like that. So it can get pretty busy. The scenic ride customer coordination is a big part. We'll typically have the passengers loaded up prior to bringing them out on the runway. So we'll push them out when they're in the airplane. Trying not to cover a lot of the stuff that Stan already covered here. Takeoff. So number 3, try to keep it directly behind the tow plane. Do not fly above the tow plane. If you look at any of the accidents in the past several years, a lot of them have to do with kiting, right? And a lot of that kiting was involved canopy issues. And dog, 1 second here. Yeah, a lot of those issues involved, canopy latches not being secured and things like that. So if you lose sight of the tow plane, release immediately. Especially during that initial takeoff roll and climb out. We're about as focused as we could be, maintaining speed, maintaining runway center line, fighting crosswind. It gets pretty bumpy as you get mechanical turbulence coming off of the trees by the windsock and Wham. So we're usually pretty busy at that most dangerous part of the flight. If you have any doubts at all about the takeoff, on the takeoff roll, release and keep it on the runway. Any other tow pilots have anything to add there? No? Next slide. So moving on to kind of the in-flight phase. You can go to the next slide there, Seth. I'll go over each of the kind of our standard tows. I towed for the first time this year last weekend, and it was really kind of an odd day. We won't get a lot of days like that, but it was light winds out of the east. Now we do have published limitations as far as taking off with a tailwind. Corey, do you remember what the published one is? I want to say it was 7 knots. Do you remember, Steve?
Yes, I believe it's sustained 7 knots.
Right. So we had about 5 knots, which made for, it's really calm. You just feel a little bit of wind now and then from the east. But it really made for an interesting day because we were taking off on 2.5, but we were landing on 7. So there's a few things we have to keep in mind there. Okay, cool. Thanks. So we do have this noise abatement zone. I think that's where most of our more vocal residents live. That'd be the best way to put it, Corey, where we get most of the complaints from.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. Ron might know more, but yeah, and well, just walk us through the procedures there. How do we deal with these neighbors?
Sure. So Corey actually has worked a lot with the port, and you know, the port has been pretty cooperative, and we're trying to keep everybody happy. And they actually assisted us in the purchase of a new prop for tow 7, which should be, is it here by now? I think.
Yeah, cleared customs day or two ago. We expect delivery early next week.
Cool. So it's a 4-blade prop. Tow 7 has a straight pipe, no muffler, so it's a pretty loud airplane. Hoping this 4-blade prop will quiet things down a little bit. I don't think tow Zulu is quite as loud as tow 7, but we still need to be very mindful of this, the noise abatement zone that we have listed here. I do have some diagrams in the next couple slides here. We'll talk about each of the tows that we'll see on all day.
Ty, before you move on though, I've also done a significant amount with the port around noise. And while the noise abatement zone shown there is an important one, there's also another one pretty much located, if you think of the Barrett Park Rockford Circle there as a center point, and then flip that noise abatement zone just to the other side, to the west of it. There is a neighbor over there who is strong, well, you get what a strong presence, and who galvanizes a lot of support around noise. So to the degree, and we can take this offline, but to the degree that we can maybe turn out sort of over and through the Rockford area there and not continue much further west beyond that, would also help us in terms of our noise abatement. If we're not flying over essentially the corner of Country Club, I'll get right down to the corner of Country Club and Barrett there. If we can kind of scoot out through Rockford there, that's probably the ideal between these two noise abatement zones. So just that's some awareness that I have of that situation.
Okay, thanks. Next slide there. All right, so we have our tow pilot diagram, our pattern tow diagram here. And one thing that's never changed is the where the glider is going to fly, right? So we're going to take off on this pattern tow. We're going to cross a road where Twin Peaks is located there. Whoop. Go back one, Seth. There you go. And we're going to on a 45, and we're going to head towards Barrett Park. About the time we hit Barrett Park is about where the glider is going to get off with a right turn over the high school, and it's going to fly a right downwind for landing on 2.5. There's been a lot of discussion, should the tow plane follow the glider on a right downwind and land behind it on the grass. I look at it as, at this point, the tow plane has left the pattern, and it's up to the tow pilot to re-enter the pattern however they see fit. abiding by any applicable regs. Okay. What I typically do when I'm towing is I'll fly a much more exaggerated circle out to the west and to the south and rejoin on a 45 and land from a left downwind for 2.5 grass, landing behind the glider. I didn't make any slides for operations from runway 7 because we don't do any operations taking off on runway 7. But if you are landing on runway 7, typically we're going to release the glider on a right downwind. They'll cross the field and then fly right traffic for runway 7 for a landing. And again, the glider is going to have to, or the tow pilot's going to have to exit the pattern, re-enter the pattern, and land. When this becomes probably, there's 2 scenarios where this is pretty dangerous. The first is a calm wind day, where the calm wind runway for Hood River is runway 7. If we are taking off on runway 25, which is totally legal to do so, it's calm wind, you can use whatever runway you'd like. There could be traffic with no radio on a left downwind for 7, and that could cause a traffic emerge there that we have to be mindful of. It also, the other one is kind of the same thing. If we are going to land on runway 7, we're basically flying an opposite pattern of what a Nordo airplane would be doing with on a calm day if they were landing on 7. So just be mindful, head on a swivel. The most dangerous days are going to be the calm wind days, because that's when most people are going to be flying into Hood River, and we are kind of going against the grain with our pattern. So just be mindful of that.
This is another spot though where the field manager's situational awareness really comes into play, because those a lot of times those visitors will be calling from pretty far out, and a lot of times they'll hear us operating on 2.5. So even if it's a calm day, if they hear the traffic on 2.5, or if we have a chat with them, even if they don't hear traffic and they say, hey, they're coming in, we can have a quick chat with them and say, hey, we got glider operations, we're operating on 2.5, and they'll kind of fall in with that. So that's another place where the situational awareness of the field manager can really help out with the radio comms.
And the tow pilots, the tow plane typically has a better radio than what I've heard the gliders have. We have often, if we get, any distance away at all, it's pretty broken. So as a tow pilot, I'm not going to tell an incoming pilot what to do, but I'm going to definitely make sure that they have all the information available to them, and I might coax them into making the right decision. But we're certainly not going to tell them what to do, right?
Yeah, I totally agree on that. I'm, as a ground person, I'm on the radio a lot. I am absolutely not a controller in any way. However, I will give them the information about where things are operating and sort of let them do it. So,
right, and Corey made a good point there that the local DPs, they made it pretty clear left and powered aircraft are going to use left-hand traffic. So next slide, Seth. Cool. So this might look like some squiggly lines here, but I'll try to make sense of it all. A typical ridge tow, and the ridge, Seth, if you want to kind of use your mouse and show where the, yep. So that's about the top of the ridge where he has his mouse right there. And this is typically a 3,000 foot tow. So we're taking you up to 3,600 MSL. We're going to take off on runway 25, and we're flying a big right-hand turn to a right downwind. If you can get north of that noise abatement zone, that's the best way to do it. And then when we get to that, it's kind of the downwind base corner I have circled there. We're going to start that turn to the north, to the south rather, and I like to to the east of Highway 35. And as we climb, this is typically where the students or the pilots are going to box the wake. We'll have a few minutes here of straight wings level climbing. Upon reaching 3,600, which this time of year, it happens pretty quick with the cold air, we're getting a lot of performance. You get a hot day in the summer with, the 232 is loaded down, you have 3 people in there for a scenic flight. We might end up having to turn back to the north at some point prior to glider release. But typically, by the time we're passing the Pine Grove stores there, it's about time for the glider to get off. They're at 3,600 MSL. And of course, the plane's turning left, the glider is turning right. Tow pilots are going to do the best job they can to make sure that we're not turning into anyone. But that's why I kind of like to stay on that north-south line that I have there. It keeps us far enough away from the ridge so that when we do make that left-hand turn, we're turning well inside of anybody that's soaring the ridge. And every tow pilot's gonna be a little bit different, but what I find myself doing is I go to that circle that I have there, southwest corner. And that's kind of where I'm doing my descent. And it's kind of a steep spiral descent. And then I'm joining that left downwind for 2.5 for the grass there, if that makes sense. But typically for that descent, after that left-hand turn, it's a diving left-hand turn, and I'm just getting away from the gliders on the ridge. And as soon as I make the left-hand turn, I'm typically turning pretty hard until I can see the glider to make sure that I'm clear of the glider and below it. And then I just put as much distance as I can between me and the glider. Any other tow pilots have anything to add there? No?
I would just say, for the glider pilots, when you get released at that point there, to not make a 180-degree turn back to the north, because a tow plane doesn't necessarily descend that fast. So, and in the tow plane, it's sometimes hard to spot the glider. So I prefer actually just, maybe just a slight right turn or 45-degree right turn until you can establish where the tow plane is.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, very good. Next slide. So the ridge tow is probably our most common tows. I'd say 90% of the tows that I've done have been to the ridge. But fairly often in the summer, we'll also go to Underwood Mountain, or the junkyard, you'll hear people call it. And again, we're going to depart the pattern from that right downwind base corner right there. From there, I'm heading along the east side of town towards the bridge. And about the time I hit the marina or the bridge, I'm going to start turning back towards Underwood Mountain. These are typically higher tows, 4,000, 5,000 foot tow. So not at that altitude by the end of that red line. I'll usually start a big left-hand orbit. And fairly wings level, but just a big left-hand turn. And especially with the 232, with the soft releases, I can tell when you're about to get off. Especially when Corey's doing a scenic flight, he gives me a pretty good pull, and I know that his release is coming. And then once they get off tow, again, left-hand turn, that's standard. And I'm kind of just diving back towards Hood River. And one of the things that I'm looking for is anybody in the pattern or orbiting the high school or WAM, because that's typically, I'm not a glider pilot, but that's where you guys are headed for. You'll descend about 1,800 feet over the high school, right, Steve?
Yeah, that's affirmative. Yeah, about 2,018 over the high schools are what is a common initial point for us to enter.
Right. So I'm looking there, and I'm looking from the ridge to the high school. Who's in the way? Who's on their way from the ridge to the high school? So that's why a lot of my descents will be out towards Mitchell Ridge a little bit more. I'm always listening on the radio for incoming traffic. I'm letting them know that, hey, there's 2 gliders on the ridge and there's 1 on a right downwind. Just so, again, I'm not telling them what to do, but I'm making sure that they have all the information available to them so that they make the decision that we want them to make, right?
Hey, Ty, question on this one, Corey here. What's the reason for the angled departure to the northeast, to the bridge with a B, rather than just going north?
Sure. I think we came up with that because we were getting better lift. It was a quicker climb over there. But if I remember right, I think you told me to go that way.
Okay. Well, no, I do often find lift over the heights, like the shopping mall and over downtown. But when I see the corner all the way down, like over the middle of the Columbia River at the Hood River Bridge, that's a little far downwind for my comfort zone.
Okay.
So
yeah, and I don't typically find myself going quite that far. I should probably change this slide. I'm more towards the spit or towards the sandbar.
Beautiful. Yeah. Okay. That answers my question, and it makes me less nervous.
Okay. And one of the things that flying that hole right down and climbing, that gives us the altitude so that, anywhere on that northbound leg, the glider is going to be able to make it back. And we avoid flying right over downtown, right? Which sometimes we want to do to, it's good advertising. So next slide. Tow accidents. Go for the next slide there. As Seth mentioned before, it was a really quiet year. COVID probably had a lot to do with that. There probably there wasn't as much flying as there had been in the past. So these are kind of just rinse and repeat of last year's safety brief, but you'll see that glider pilot reported a canopy problem, distracted him, resulting in a 100-foot climb above the tow plane, or kiting. If you noticed Seth's picture of the new tow plane on his first slide, that was me flying, and I fly with a helmet. It's comfortable and I like it. It's quieter than my normal headset in the tow plane. But also, this is the most dangerous flying, probably the most dangerous flying that I'll ever do. Outside, there's some other things that are fairly dangerous, but anytime you have another airplane tied to you, it's pretty dangerous, right? One of the things I love about the Pawnee is that it's built like a roll cage. It's a very safe airplane, but you are tied to another person. A lot of times it's a student pilot. Hood River is not an easy airport to fly out of. It's probably one of the harder airports in the Pacific Northwest with the wind. It's typically a crosswind. It's the windsurfing and kite surfing, kiteboarding capital of the country. People come here from all over the world just to do that. So we have wind. There's a lot of variables there. So it's just please, take it serious. This Byron Airport in California, we all kind of got the news about this one right after it happened, but I'm pretty sure that's the one that killed the tow pilot, right? If I remember right. The next one there in Saratoga Springs, glider lost control resulting in pitch up and kiting. This was a CG issue that they determined. So, I, as a tow pilot, when I pull up in front of a glider, the glider's CG is really not on my radar. Us tow pilots put a lot of faith in the glider pilots, that their ballast is secured, their CG is within limits, their flight controls aren't locked, their canopy is locked. That's why I take a lot of comfort when I'm towing someone and I hear, glider where spoilers are in and locked, canopy is locked and secured. I like hearing that on the radio. Gives me peace of mind that that's one less thing I have to worry about happening. That third one there, glider canopy came open at 3,000 feet. If something happens that high, it's typically pretty survivable for us. I think there's a couple of guys from Willamette Valley that I think they went out with their Pawnee and they kind of went through some kiting scenarios at altitude, and got some good data points on what to expect. We talked about that in one of our safety meetings. And then finally, one of the things that glider pilots don't worry about, but it's too little fuel, right? So it's very easy to get caught up in the moment and to get like Ranger Rick, and he's having a marathon day where he's doing 30 glider tows. You have to keep an eye on that fuel gauge. We have a club rule where every 10 glider tows, we're going to be heading to the fuel pump. Now, if it's 10 pattern tows, you're probably not in danger of running out of gas. But if it's 10 tows out to Underwood Mountain up to 5,000 or 6,000 feet, you're probably going to be running on fumes. So even though we have that club standard, it still takes some situational awareness and kind of keep an eye on what your fuel is doing. And it's never has anyone ever asked me to push my limits there. Especially if you have 6 or 7 tows and there's nothing going on for the next half hour, go up and get gas. There's always time to go get gas. Having lost one tow plane to that issue years ago, nobody's going to hold it against you for taking the time to go get gas.
And Ty, I'll jump in here as again, from the field manager's perspective, that's another place where a field manager can have some situational awareness and help out. I don't usually, I don't like dig in and take responsibility, although sometimes I'll ask you how you're doing on gas, but I will let the tow pilots know, hey, we got a 20-minute, 30-minute dead period after this one. And if if I know you've got a bunch of tows on, this might be a good time to go do it. So we can coordinate that with you and give you the information you need to be able to sort of sequence that in and make it make sense. So,
right. And also if it's the end of the day and, you just fueled up, you did 2 pattern tows, you put it back in the hangar, just leave a big note, on the panel there that says, full tanks minus 2 pattern tows. And it just kind of gives us a little bit of an idea of what's in there. Just trying to read through some of the questions here. So Paul brought up a good question there. 10 tows, no matter what, even if they're just pattern tows. That's the club policy is 10 tows. I'll leave it at that, I guess.
I mean, I think it's safe to say ultimately it's the pilot.
You're the pilot in command, right?
Yeah.
But there's always time to go get gas. Okay, cool. Thanks, Gary. All right, next slide.
Guess that's my cue.
Yeah.
Steve.
Well, Ty, thank you very much. And also Stan, I think you guys pretty much took all my thunder. You guys covered a lot of the points that I was going to cover, but we'll go through it real quick and reiterate, look at it from a glider instructor's perspective. And I really wanted to kind of focus on attitude of the pilots. So that's going to be a little bit of my focus here. So Seth, if you get the next slide. Okay, yeah. So what are the characteristics of a good pilot? I think we kind of all have in mind what we have as the idealized pilot, and I think probably all think that we're that pilot. But let's go to the next slide, see what those characteristics might be. Intelligent. So I think we all kind of consider ourselves intelligent. Pilots are generally intelligent. Have a lot of things we got to learn and we got to think about. And so that's one characteristic of a good pilot. Let's go to the next slide. Skilled. Good eye-hand coordination. Practices his skill, his craft. Really making sure that he's sharp on all of his maneuvers and being a well-rounded pilot. So skilled, that would be another characteristic of a good pilot. Let's go to the next slide. Courageous. You're going to go out there and you're going to try things that other people shrink from. So yeah, you're going to need some courage. Ty's out there tied on a 200-foot rope to a 14-year-old kid in a glider. That requires a little courage, I think. So courageous.
I was trying not to bring up the age thing.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, those 14-year-old pilots are pretty sharp. So
yeah, that's the thing. I've never even had one like puckered moment from anybody, but especially from our young guys. It's
yeah. You know, that's because of their instructor.
That's all I can attribute it to. Yeah.
So let's take a look at the next slide. Good looking, yeah, and humble. Don't forget that. So yeah. Well, this one here, humble. Sometimes it's hard when we're intelligent and we're skilled and courageous and good looking. It's kind of hard to be humble, but I think that's probably one of the more important things that we need to look for, characteristics in pilots and ourselves as pilots, is to look and consider that we might not have all the answers, that we need to learn, and we need to be open to other ideas. Let's go to the next slide. Seth, did you check out the humble? There we go. Yeah, so a willingness to accept criticism and to learn and to admit that we don't know everything and that what we think we know might be wrong. And I think that's something that we all need to be conscious of and have an open mind and be willing to learn and listen to others and really have an open curiosity in everything we're doing out at the airport, and really having, Stan's touched on this, situational awareness, looking out, trying to learn, see what's going on, have that curiosity. Don't have your head down. Don't have your, locked in what you've always done. You need to have an open mind and look at that. Let's go to the next slide.
And Steve, I think these are really good points as well. Like, to always try to strive to be a student of aviation. You're not going to know everything, and you're going to learn something hopefully every time you fly, and be a better pilot because of it. And then also the recognition, be humble. You know that you're going to make mistakes on every flight, regardless of whether you're flying an Airbus or a Cessna 150.
Absolutely, that's right. We should all be students. I know I am. I'm the least experienced instructor, but I definitely have a lot to learn from others and even from my students. So, all right. So one of the big points, and this comes back to Ty was talking about the glider, the canopy opening up, or the die brakes popping open. At no point can you ever stop flying that aircraft. That is, a glider will fly without the canopy on. You can land it without the dive brakes working, but one thing that glider needs is a pilot, and it needs a pilot that's engaged and focused on his job of safely operating that glider. Navigation, that's important to know where you're at, of course. Communication, I see people get tied up and stumbling over their words on a radio, and then losing track of flying the aircraft. So aviate always comes first, and in every situation. So just never stop flying it. If you find yourself in a situation, by Bob Hoover always said, you fly the airplane all the way through the crash, and that has saved his life and saved multiple other pilots' lives by not giving up control of the aircraft. So this section is on launch, release, and recover. My name is Steve Frisbee. I'm the chief flight instructor here, and whammo66@gmail.com is my contact address. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so on the way to the airport, getting ready to go flying, or even just thinking about, hey, I'm going to go to the glider port tomorrow, you'd start going through this risk mitigation and safety checklist. And the one we use is PAVE. The first on that is pilot, and that's doing a pre-flight of yourself, the I'm safe checklist, making sure that you've got all your legal documents and that you're legal to fly. A for aircraft, and that's all the aero, the aircraft registration, radio station, or excuse me. Wow, that went back a little ways. Registration, operating limitations, and weight and balance. Pre-flight annual, making sure that the aircraft is ready to fly. Checking all of that information. And that is all available and accessible on our website. V for environment, making sure the weather's good, and reviewed any NOTAMs, TFRs, and your personal minimums. Seth touched on it a bit, and it's important to recognize those minimums. And I think the big one there at Hood River is the wind, knowing what wind conditions you are comfortable with. If you're not, don't go fly, or get with an instructor that feels comfortable, and make those minimums, write them down so they're more concrete. If they're just kind of, well, about 15 knots, then when it's 16, then you'll, well, that's pretty close. You really need to make those specific minimums that you're following. And then E for external pressures. Why are you doing this? We're not trying to save the free world here. We're just out flying gliders and having a good time. So it's important to put it in perspective, and don't pressure yourself or push it. If you think it's unsafe, take a step back and really consider it, and don't bow to external pressures. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, so takeoff, launching the glider. We have checklists published in the K-21. Some of the other ones do as well, and some gliders don't have it, but this is a basic checklist that is commonly used. And it starts out, you've got 1A, 2 Bs, 3 Cs, and then 2 Ds and 1 E to go through alphabetically. A for the altimeter, of course, making sure you're adjusted for 600, not 1600, but 600. So a good idea to take a look at that. Ballast, making sure your ballast is correct and you've reviewed your weight and balance, and that the ballast is secure. And make sure there's no hidden ballast. If there's anything behind the seat, we've got some young students that we got to put a bunch of extra ballast in there, some underneath the seat, and it's not easily visible. So when you're getting ready to fly that, pull the seat back out, make sure there's no hidden ballast that you're not aware of. The second B is making sure seatbelts are on, nice and tight and snug for you and your passenger. First C is for the canopy. Canopy's closed and locked. Making sure that that is positively locked. C, the controls. You're going to move the stick around and the rudder pedals. Look out there at the control surfaces if you can. Sometimes they're not visible, but that's something you can do in your pre-flight as well. Make sure they're free and correct. And one of the controls that I find is often skipped over is your trim. Making sure the trim is at the proper setting for takeoff. If it's way out of shape, that could really cause an unusual controls requirement, and might get you high on tow and could cause a disaster. So the trim is very important. Cable, we're looking for the cable, the tow hook and the rope to make sure that it's good. Here's one that we touched on earlier. This is something that really should be done and inspected before we ever go out on the runway. I find that a lot of times we're in a rush to go flying, we'd out there and then, oh gee, that rope doesn't look so great, we need to tie it. Better to take care of that before we get out on the runway, less of a proclivity to try to say, well, it's good enough and go. So I think that's something that needs to be handled before we go out. And of course,
I want to jump in and say, however, if you are shown a rope that you don't like, you absolutely, as the PIC, have the right to say that's not good enough. Even if you are on the runway, you shouldn't be pressured into taking it for that. So
That's absolutely right.
and
Yeah,
the
and not
ground
only,
ops person, I'll tell you, I'm ready to do it. So
yeah, no, and not only is it, you're right, it's something, it's your responsibility, right? So, and then in addition to that, you're also checking, make sure you have a weak link if that's necessary. That should be all part of that check. First D for dive brakes, close and lock, cycle them out and visually check and make sure they're deploying symmetrically, close them, lock them. The next D is checking the direction of the wind and to know what you're going to expect on your takeoff roll and what you're going to do on the next letter, which is the emergency plan. That's emergency plan. As soon as you come off that rope, that wind condition is going to be really important to you. And that's going to help you to make your determination as what your first step is going to be. First step, of course, is to lower the nose, but are you going to turn left or right? You always want to turn into the wind to make your downwind landing or to enter your abbreviated pattern. And so Ty touched on this a little bit before as well. And this is what we've started to adopt and I'm trying to integrate into our training is that when we're ready to go, of course, the tow pilot is going to be looking at the wing runner. The wing runner is going to be looking at your rudder. You're going to fan your rudder in order to give the signal that you're ready to take off. And that is the signal to go. But prior to that, with our radio, we like to say, real simple, doesn't have to be very long. Canopy and dive brakes closed and locked. Ty hears that, the tow pilot hears that. Gives him a warm fuzzy feeling when he knows that you've checked it and you've mentioned that to him. Let's go to the next slide. Takeoff. Now you're starting your takeoff roll, maintaining the runway center line behind the tow plane. That is number one and one of the most important things. Equally important, keeping the wings generally level. Of course, you're going to have a crosswind component. You may carry a wing a little lower on one side, but you don't want to be dragging a wing, and you need to be on top of that. If a wing starts to drop, you need to pick that wing back up. Don't let it drag. That can really get you out of shape. And maintain visual focus forward and on the tow plane. You don't need to be looking out to the left to look at your wing runner or somebody taking a picture or something going on the grass runway. Your visual focus has got to maintain and remain on that tow plane so that you can maintain the proper tow position. If you do lose sight of that tow plane, you've got to get off tow. And you need to be prepared to release from the tow plane if needed. That's something I see a lot of people, one hand resting on the spoilers, one's on the stick. I don't know what you're gonna do with the spoilers necessarily. There might be some things you might consider there, but there's a video popped up here next. Let's go ahead and go to that slide. And if you can start that video, Seth. Starting to take off roll. He's got his left hand just kind of loosely on the dive brakes. Right wing goes down. He's headed for all those gliders and glider trailers. And if you saw it, he was fumbling around trying to find that release handle. Then back to the spoilers to get the brakes on. That happened really fast. And so one thing I did a little bit of research, and a lot of glider clubs, we can flip to the next slide. So a lot of glider clubs, they teach that you of course don't want to have your hand wrapped around the release handle because you could inadvertently pull it, but point to it or even rest the tip of your finger on it so that you have a good idea when it comes down and you've got to pull that release for whatever reason. You get high on tow or you get out of shape or you drag a wingtip and things get crooked, that you know where that's at. You have that in mind. That should be part of your emergency plan and your pre-takeoff brief as well. So next up here is up. Now we've gone up and we're ready for our release. Let's back up one slide. There we go. So what we're going to do on release is about 100 feet below your planned release altitude. I like to get the student to first of all be looking around, clearing area, still maintaining the focus on the tow plane ahead, but glancing right turn your head, glance right and left and back to the tow plane, always focused on the tow plane first, to look for any traffic that you may be turning into on release when you turn right, but also to clear where the tow pilot's going to go when he turns left. At that point, we kind of go to a high right toe. So basically you shift off just to be back of the tow plane's right wingtip. And what that does when you pull the release, that cable will go away to the left. If you're directly behind the tow plane, that ring is going to float around in front of the nose, and there's a good chance it might hit you, hit your canopy, or hit the glider. But if you're shifted off to the right, it goes away to the left, and things work out a lot nicer. Once you release, to verify your release and turn immediately, don't wait around. That's your job. Time to get off there, out of the way of the tow plane. And as soon as you do make that turn, we lost our slides. As soon as you make that turn, you need to be looking back for the tow plane. Locate the tow plane. And Seth, you still
I
here?
think it looks like Seth dropped out of the.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Of course, now we do have some that have the tow string and some that have the Schweitzer ring. We do soft releases on all the gliders with the Schweitzer ring, and hard releases with the tow string. We can go to the next slide. Seth, are you there? Has anybody got any questions, comments?
Hey, I'm just dealing with a little bit of hotel internet here. Give me 1 second. Can you see the presentation still?
I have you. I can see the slide we're on, although it's not in slideshow view, I don't believe.
All right, hold on a second. Give me a moment here. Maybe field some questions.
Sure. Does anybody have any questions, anything they want to add in there? One thing that I did, I've noticed is, and I think it's common in some clubs, is to announce to the tow pilot over the radio that you're ready for release or preparing for release. We've had a discussion about that, and that could result in a problem where the tow pilot believes that you have released when you say ready for release. And so we've kind of shied away from doing that. Once you're away, tell them, hey, glider's away, thanks for the tow. But in advance, saying I'm ready to release or I'm about to release, all it takes is a little cutout of the transmission, and all the tow pilot hears is release. So that's something that we should, it's a consideration, let's put it that way.
So Steve, let me just throw out, as far as the radio communication, I know that was brought up earlier. I think Paul said he likes to announce. In the 232, that is somewhat of an issue because you have to pick up the handheld radio, and so you kind of got your hands full right there at the time. So I've been pretty much just releasing, and then when I get the chance, I'll pick up the hand and say right away.
Yeah. Really, when you release and you turn, you're leaving that tow plane behind. Communication, what is aviate first, right? It's always aviate first, and communication, that comes last. So
one more reason we need to get the 232 fixed up with the radio.
I agree. All right. Well, I don't have my slides on, so this might be a real easy presentation for me now. I can kind of bag out and just take questions and answers. Or
I think it looks like Seth may be dropping on and off the call, which is why they keep going away. So
yeah, I lost Google. I lost internet, so I lost Google Drive, which is where the presentation was coming from.
you know what? Maybe if let's see, I might be able to bring. If you turn over screen sharing to me, I could probably do something.
Yeah, I'm having some internet difficulties.
Yeah.
We made a good long time without there being any
technical... You did great.
So, yeah, Chrome is not happy. Let's see here.
So Seth, are you able to make Steve Frisbee a presenter? Are you able to pull down the command?
You're asking the difficult questions here. Let's see here. I was not prepared for this eventuality.
Okay, Seth, are you able to find the participants list? There should be a participants button down below. You see that?
Yes, sir.
Click on that and get the list, then find Steve Frisbee's name in it. And if you hover over it, you might get a more button to the right.
I'm glad somebody knows what they're doing. I'm tracking here. I'm on my way.
It only sounds like it.
You know what? You might not have to do that. I think I can do it myself.
You just do it, Steve. You might just be able to present. Yeah.
Hey, there we go.
You got it.
Disaster averted. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, all
I
right.
passed the football to you.
All right. Okay, well, cool. All right, so, all right, next up, we're talking about our first 3 flights of the season. Recommend that your first flight not be a pattern tow. You need to be getting up to 3,000 feet or better. Do some slow flight, do some stall series, steep turns, get a good handle, good control, feel for the glider again. That's really important. You know, powered pilots do this as well. Get up there, do some maneuvers, get kind of back in sync with the aircraft, and then after that, do some pattern tows. This is a bare minimums, right? After being off for the winter and then to do 3 flights, that's not really going to make you proficient. Makes you legal. Covers our insurance requirements, but I would suggest this is a good place to start. And you want to do this all on one day. Some dedicated flying. Do more than just 3. So situational awareness, something we've talked about quite a bit. And this is after you're getting off tow. Instantly, you need to be aware of where the airport is. And that really should be something you're paying attention to all the way up on your tow, because if you do have to get off tow prematurely, you need to be headed back to safety, right? Looking for the tow plane. I liked Jeff's point about making a shallow, maybe a 30-degree turn, or maybe at the most, maybe a 90, but then looking back over your shoulder, locating that tow plane, because there's a lot of times where he continues climbing and he may be a little bit above you too. And that there have been times when gliders and tow planes have collided and has been pretty. Also making sure that you're aware of thinking about where other traffic is. And that starts when you're sitting on the ground and man, there's a glider, maybe the 232 is doing a scenic flight. He's been out on the ridge for a while. There's Jonathan's got his label and he's been up for a little bit. He might be coming into the pattern. These are things you need to think about before you depart. That's all part of that intelligent pilot stuff, right? And then terrain. Awareness of the terrain, and you're not going to strike that ridge, or and when you're towing, or if you're turning, making sure that where you're turning, you're clear of any terrain. Kind of seems like it goes without saying, but people run into it all the time. Pattern tows, pretty much basically the same thing we do in our regular releases. The tow pilot's going to turn left immediately. Glider pilot's going to turn right, and shift off to the right, so that when the tow line goes away, it's not hanging out there and rattling around out in front of your nose. Recovery. Okay, this is something that I want to discuss a little bit. Always thinking about the wind in Hood River, because it's such a huge factor. I'd really like to see a stabilized approach from my students, and I think we should all strive for that. And with your spoilers out all the way, slipping every time you land, that's not really a stabilized approach. And sure, that's something good to practice occasionally, but we're looking for an approach that's used about half spoiler and slip if you need to. And that's all of that is going to be based on what the wind conditions are. So like to see a stabilized approach. Of course, you don't want to get out past the river. See this blue line here. This is probably the farthest out pattern that you'd want to fly in Hood River, beyond these trees over here on the east side there. That's where the river is. You get out there, there's some significant sink, and if the wind's really blowing, you may not make it back the runway. So this would be probably a calm wind situation, or in a glider that's got pretty good performance. This white line, this might be your track when the wind's really blowing. But in any case, you need to be judging with your high, low, fast or slow, and you want to maintain your approach speed with any wind considerations that you have. 3 is our aiming point, 2 is what our touchdown point might be, and 1 would be the stopping point. If you're touching down at 3, right here on the numbers, That may be pretty cool, but that's not very far away from being out here in the grass. So really, airline pilots and Seth, they want you down the first third of the runway, but they're definitely not at the numbers. So these are things that you work on and practice on, and you start to become proficient with. Before landing, we use a checklist training, and there's multiple ones, Foostall and all kinds, but the ones we've been using is BGF watts, and that is the brakes, making sure you know where the wheel brake is. Wouldn't be the first time somebody landed and they forgot where the brakes were or to use the brakes. It's a good thing to brief up front. Is it a squeeze handle on the stick? Is it on the spoilers? Where is the brake? How do you apply it? Gear, making sure if you got a retractable gear, you got to make sure that your gear is down. Flaps, if they are on your glider and are required for landing, then you want that to be part of your checklist. Bend wind, we discussed that a little bit on our landing recovery there, being conscious of what the wind direction is. If they're burning out there on the orchards, that's really nice to see that smoke, but checking the wind conditions to determine proper runway and what considerations you're going to have in entering the pattern. Getting your airspeed set up and nailed and the trim to maintain that airspeed, and then looking out for traffic, making any appropriate radio traffic calls, announcing where you're at and what your intentions are, and try to make those calls brief, concise, and with a specific information that is going to be helpful to the other traffic. Reading off your call sign is not important. You're a glider, big white glider, small white glider, orange glider. That's more than enough. They can't read your tail number. So I would submit that just calling yourself a glider is going to be enough, and telling them what your altitude is, where your location is, and what your intentions are, and try to think about that and boil that down to nice, concise communications. And the last is spoilers. You take the spoilers out, you cycle them, and at that point, you never lock the spoilers again. Your hands on the spoiler for the rest of the landing, approach and landing, and using that to adjust your glide slope, and then picking your spot to land for your landing. When you're making your landing, constantly asking yourself if you're fast or slow, high or low. Don't get slow on your approach. I don't want to see anybody with, the 5 knots below what your landing speed is. That is something that you need to be on top of, and making sure you're making pitch corrections to maintain your approach speed. Fighting for the center line. And this goes back to, if you aim small, you're going to miss small. So fight for that center line. You should be able to get that tire to set down on the white line, and adjusting for your aiming point, same thing, and always striving to make that very accurate. And you're going to get better the more you are attempting to don't allow yourself to get into a thought, oh, this is good enough, because in aviation, I don't think there's anything that's good enough. Always room for improvement. You're looking for maintain your landing speed with half spoilers. That's the goal, and slip if necessary. And then one last little thing is the different airstrips we have, or landing areas that are available for gliders. 2.5 obviously is one we typically use. It's a good thing to practice landing on the grass. To have that kind of opens up your mind to the idea that, hey, I can land on the grass, and there are times when there might be a glider staged over here. You may not have any other options to land on the grass. If that's tied up, you can also land on this taxiway, and you can also land on this grass area to the right of that north taxiway as well. These are options for you. One thing you don't have an option of is really going around, right? So you're gonna have to find a place to put the glider down. And after landing, of course, bring any maintenance issues as soon as possible. If the aircraft is not airworthy, it needs to be tagged out and notified, so nobody attempts to fly it. You want to leave it in as good or better condition than you found it. Make sure you got any garbage out of it. Everything's all put in place. If you took the seat back out of K-21, put it back in, and then make sure you know how to fill out your PIC online. If anybody has any questions about that, or about making an entry into Team Up, email me. I'd be happy to help you. And I believe we've got some instructional videos on the website too. And that is it for our 2022 Hood River Safety Meeting. Anybody have any other questions for us? For Stan especially, he's good at answering those.
Hi, this is Brett.
Hey, Brett.
Hi, in years past, as part of our beginning of season procedures, the pilots were required to sit down with either an instructor or a commercial pilot to review their background in flying at Hood River, whether or not they needed to have any kind of refresher work before going up, so on and so forth. Is that still in place this year?
We have not discussed that specifically. We have a back in the saddle plan. You should submit that to a flight instructor. Pretty much it's actively right now, I think Jeff and I. Please email that plan to us. We'll confer with you. I think that's at a minimum, we should be doing that. So I don't know that it's been formalized, Brett, but that's where I'd like to go. And I'm always available to fly with you as well, or not always, I should say. But Jeff is. He's always available. Let's do that. And we're going to have. We talked with Stan a little bit about formalizing this to be able to get it in the database for the website that shows that you've got your checkout, and that's something that that needs a little bit more polish.
This is Gary Gross from Willamette Valley. Ty mentioned during his presentation the experiments that were done several years ago regarding kiting. And to make a long story short, the bottom line is things happen really fast to the point where if you don't have several hundred feet of altitude, the tow pilot is unlikely to be able to recover from having his nose driven toward the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's right. And I think tow pilots have this idea, well, I'm going to be on top of cutting them loose, but that's rarely the case. We're not really, as much as you might prime yourself for doing that, I don't think you have time to do it. So it's imperative, going back to the glider pilot's skills and maintaining his focus on the tow plane and maintaining the proper tow position throughout the takeoff, roll, and climb. It's imperative. It's life and death. It's a life and death situation. You need to be on top of that.
I mean, Steve, I think it's defer to you as the instructor, but I think it's not too much to say that the glider pilot has an absolute responsibility to release if you find yourself out of position, right? I
Definitely.
I don't remember if we covered that, but
Yes, yep, yes, that's right.
You may be fighting to recover, but at the same time, once the tow pilot goes out of view below, for example, you have to release because you are now holding that person's safety.
That's exactly right, and that kind of goes back to being able to locate that release handle. You see how long that guy took to fumbling around to find the release on that launch, and it really is something that we need to be primed and being part of your emergency plan.
So, okay, Steve, I know it's already 6 o'clock, but Corey asked me to say a few words about commercial, intro ride, scenic ride safety. But I know it's already 6 o'clock, and it's I'm sure some people are getting ready to go to dinner. But may I take a minute?
Absolutely. Go right ahead, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, guys. So, hello, everyone. Paul Peterson here. Corey Ressler and others apparently informed me that I've been voluntold to be the intro / scenic rides, not coordinator, but committee. So we agreed that the title is Viceroy, the scenic rides Viceroy. Thank you, Corey. And since this is a safety meeting, I just want to have a few words about the real simple basics of safety in ground operations with scenic rides and the passengers and their tag-alongs. The tow pilots and the commercial pilots, they have their own policies. We have our own policies and how to deal with a passenger during flight. But I think for the benefit of the whole group here and to make it more succinct, I'll just go over a few of my ideas and observations over the years of flying scenic rides from Honolulu to Willamette Valley to here over 20 years. The most important thing in my experience and opinion is to keep the scenic ride passengers and their entourage corralled and observed at all times. It's so easy to have a passenger or customer's spouse, significant other, kids, dog, pet iguana get loose, and next thing you know, they're walking into a noisemaker in a tow plane. At Willamette Valley, the big covered area that we have is called a corral, and that's how I look at it. Keep everybody corralled. We have a covered area at Willamette Valley. It's a nice covered area with 5 or 6 picnic benches. It's comfortable. It's in the shade, and it encourages people to stay in that spot on a hot summer day. It's people are motivated to find a shady place, and that really is helpful. In fact, this last summer out at Willamette Valley, when we hit the 110, 115 degree days and it got smoky and horrible, I brought out a sun pop-up tent. Right, I ran a youth soccer club for many years, so I have a half of a garage full of lawn chairs and pop-up tents, sunshade tents. We staked it into the ground really well to protect it from blowing away in the wind out by the staging area, because a lot of customers and their entourage will want to come on out to the staging area, hand them their phones, say goodbye, take a selfie. There's always somebody wanting to grab something out of their bag or ditch their apocalypse, go bag at the last minute, and it can get chaotic. So you have to keep them corralled. What I like to do as a matter of practice when I'm greeting a scenic ride customer at Willamette Valley or at Hood River is greet them. They're a customer, they're a paying customer. So you treat them with courtesy and professionalism. You literally look them in the eye, give them confidence, acknowledge them, right? Acknowledge that they're a paying customer, they're valuable to the operation. We are professional and we'll treat them with courtesy and respect, and we're professionals. Instantly, that interaction instills confidence and encourages them to follow you and to trust you, and it helps you keep them corralled. Simple rules that are clearly communicated right at the get-go when you greet the customer. This is the 50-foot line, and here is where we can or cannot walk, and here's how we have to keep and control our kids or other small animals. Keep them corralled. That's it in a nutshell. Some tools that I think might be helpful, and I don't know if or how this might be allowed with the port or operations, but I'd like to recommend some tools that might be helpful, simple tools to influence behavior, to help keep people corralled. For example, like as a soccer coach, I'm very accustomed to painting striped lines on fields. Are we allowed to paint a white, orange, yellow, whatever line, with one of those roller spray cans? I have one in the garage, by the way, 50 feet from the runway. It's easy to point to, easy to tell the customers, passengers, their entourage, this yellow line is 50 feet from the runway, it's active runway. They don't have to calculate and measure 50 feet in their head. There's a line right there. And yes, on a dusty summer day, it will blow away and we may have to repaint it, restripe it, every week or so, but it'd be helpful. It's a simple tool. Anything that helps influence these people's behavior to stay off of the active runway and to be corralled in a safe area without having to watch them all the time is great tools to leverage. Sorry, say again?
I'd like to jump in there. As a ride pilot, I've had good luck with loading the passengers into the glider at the area where it's tied down, and their entourage might be there taking their pictures and getting all excited. And I said, okay, we're getting ready to go out the runway. They're strapped in. we tow the glider from the tie down area out to the runway, and all the entourage stays where they are. I just say, you guys got to stay here. We're ready to go. We're going out to the runway. And then there's nobody walking around on the runway around the airplane except the ride pilot and the wing runner maybe. And we get off real quick.
Yeah.
And I don't worry too much about the entourage.
Yeah, and as a ground person who has loaded probably many of the riders that Tim is talking about, I'll tell you that I don't even want them out around the 50-foot line. I basically tell them they need to stand along if they want to come out, that they need to be along the tree line, they need to hug the tree line, and that they can come out to the picnic table if they wish. So Paul, it's not as luxurious and exotic and so on as what we aspire to that Willamette Valley does. With tents and so on, but we do have that picnic table out there, and that serves as a good focal point. You guys can be here, I can see them there, and if you depart from this, you need to walk along the tree line back to the car area. So we do, Paul. I think it's consistent with what you're saying, which is corral them, keep your eye on them, let them know what they can do. We could probably do better. You know, we can paint some lines, stuff like that. But I agree with Tim. Keeping them all the way against the tree line at the picnic table, loading the pilot and the glider, and then the entourage stays back. I think that all is consistent with what you're saying here, Paul.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Thanks, Stan. Okay, given that, we're all in heated agreement on the importance of doing so. I'd like to recommend a couple of inexpensive, easy to use tools that will help to influence that behavior, so we don't have to repeat it as often or again, or watch them. If they do get loose, they know the rules, and they're easier for the customer and their entourage to follow. And that is one. A striped line would be helpful, or just a strip of fertilizer. It'll help darken the grass for a strip 50 feet away from the runway, something like that you guys decide. But that is something I'll recommend. Another thing I'll recommend, and here's why. I'll recommend, and I'll bring them out there myself, my donation to the club. I have extra, tents, the sunshades, very robust. These are made for soccer tournaments in the Northwest, not those cheap little flimsy tents that'll blow away, and deeply stake them in where they won't blow away, of course, up to a certain limit of, wind limit, in places like by the picnic table and other picnic tables. I can bring in a table, I can bring in chairs, the lawn chairs, like soccer mom, soccer dad lawn chairs, and a tent or two to put there by the picnic table, or by the tree line there to the west of Russ's house, right? And the reason I'd like to place something there that is a checkpoint or a place where we can point to is if you're able to tell customers, you know what, right over there is the best place for you to take pictures, or the best place to see the glider take off, or when the glider lands, he's going to touch down right there. So you're going to want to be standing right there. Guess what? When you tell them, oh, your guy is coming in, or they hear them on the radio, everybody will immediately beeline to that spot, right? So that it's one less thing for us to worry about, and it influences their behavior. So this is, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, the best place to see the takeoff, take pictures of the takeoff, to see the landing, and to greet them when they come back. And you don't even have to encourage them at that point. They'll just automatically go there, right? So,
Paul,
corral. Yeah.
Can I suggest we take some of this discussion offline? I think we're starting to lose our 60 participants here from Willamette Valley. Are starting to wonder if the safety meeting is actually over. We're and this is all totally appropriate for us. This is probably an internal discussion of best practices for
no problem.
Totally agree.
I just want to make a couple of quick recommendations to bring in some very inexpensive tools that are easy to use to help influence behavior. Those things I will provide them. And another thing, then I'll shut up. On a hot day, a cooler out by the tree line, or by the tent, or by the picnic table. Hey, there's cold drinks over there. That's the best place to get a drink, and that's the best place to watch the takeoff, the landing, whatever. They won't stray with more than 20 feet from there for most of the rest of the flight. That's all I'm saying.
I hear you. I agree. Those are all consistent with, and I'll say again, I'm probably one of the people who loads a lot of those scenic passengers, and those are all consistent and good ideas. Many of them consistent with what we already do, if not as exotically oriented. So thank you for that.
Oh, I didn't say we're feeding them champagne. I said
No.
cooler, maybe
No, but I
water.
mean, like having tents and a nice area and multiple picnic tables. We aspire to that at some point.
Could we get a liquor license? Could this be an upsell? Could this
Yeah,
be
right.
a
Now
package
you're
deal?
talking.
Yes.
So
All right,
Steve, it looks like
that's
Steve may have dropped off. Seth, it may be back to you to close us out here.
Can
Okay.
I jump in for a second, please?
Absolutely. Any closing remarks from anybody else?
Actually,
If anybody wants to fly in the wave, the FAA FSDO office now wants to have a list of pilots ahead of time. So I need your name, your pilot license number, your ratings, your glider N number and type, and whether or not it's transponder equipped. And if you can get that to me in the next week or two, I will send the new list in to the FSDO. Basically, I've been sending a list in about every 6 months. And also, too, in my last conversation, I had dinner with 2 of the safety inspectors from the FSDO a couple of weeks ago. And you guys have a hot spot for potential conflict with the airliners in that Hood waypoint, which is at roughly 8,000 to 9,000 feet, almost straight up from Hood River. And you won't believe, but looking at the amount of air traffic through there every day, you're looking at up to 100 flights. And the airliners are cruising through there at 200 to 300 knots. And a glider without a transponder, ATC can't see, and neither can the airliners. And so the airlines are already grumping a little bit to the FAA about the potential for conflict there. And they're not happy with the wave window per se, because they might have to detour around it when the wave window is active. So we have some pushback from the airlines basically on glider activities where we're at. So I would encourage everybody, if you are going to be flying above, say, 8,000 feet in the vicinity of that Hood waypoint, be heads up, maybe even call Portland Approach to say, or Seattle Center to say, hey, we're here. You can't see us, but we're here, let the airlines know. So anyway, my email address is clloyd@teleport.com. And if you want to just send me the information, I'll put it together and send it forward. Thanks.
That's a great point about the Hood waypoint. I've flown that many times, and they generally come in a little bit lower over Hood when they're landing west in Portland. It's kind of a straight shot right there on a 28 left and right. But I've not personally seen any impact, but I don't know that I've been flying. I don't fly very much these days when the wave window is active. But yeah, definitely something to be aware of if you're going to be above 8,000 feet there on the north side of Hood.
So Seth, I'm going to suggest maybe you can just pinpoint on a chart exactly where this Hood waypoint is. I think most airlines now, unless they're being vectored or on direct to somewhere else, they pretty much probably fly right over that waypoint. So if we had an exact spot on it as a place to possibly avoid, it would probably be a help.
Yeah, I could take that as an action item.
Actually, I sent Mr. Curtis a copy of the flight profiles from the FAA for a 24-hour period. And I also sent him a copy of the high altitude jetway chart that's got the waypoint on it. And also it's got another Google Earth chart that shows the wave window as well as that waypoint. So anyway, he can distribute that around the group and folks can take a look at it.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just contact Seth, and in fact, I'll forward that information you sent me, Clea. I'll send that to Seth. And
yeah, I'd be interested to see that. Thanks, Jeff.
okay.
Anybody else have anything to round up here at the end of this evening's presentation?
Hey, guys, this is Brian. We might want to take this offline. I couldn't get a word in edgewise about the weak links earlier, but the FAA requirements are that the front weak link must be stronger than, but not more than 25% stronger than the rear weak link. And nobody knows how to do that unless you get the toast ones, which are mechanical and a big pain to hook up. So again, we might want to revisit that because nobody's making two weak links for starters. And if you do, they have to be a differential. Nobody knows what the strengths of two different weak links are. And all of our gliders can be towed by a 1,400-pound rope without weak links based on the weights that we've got. I'm not suggesting we do that. We've gotten in this habit of just talking about a weak link as a generic thing, but the requirements are actually quite a bit more specific because of the front and rear one they're required. We had to do a deep dive into this to fly the LaBelle other places last year. And what we found is that a 1,400-pound rope, it's less than twice the weight of the LaBelle max gross weight, right? So I'm neutral on it, except that's what the FAA says. And I don't know quite where that takes us.
So I would agree
Hey,
that
can I
probably,
just interrupt, like me talking like from somebody else? Place, like we either close the meeting and leave it for the behind meeting, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think these are issues that Hood River Soaring personnel need to take off into an HRS forum for internal discussion. So
agreed. I just wanted to get it on the table for you guys because we didn't cover it earlier.
That's fair.
But also I'm saying like we can stick on for people who are still interested.
Right. Do we still have Seth? Are you still? We're gone.
I'm sitting in a hotel in Seattle all night long. So
I think I may be the ranking member at this point. So unless anybody else has any specific issues related to the group safety meeting, raise your voice now, or we're going to release everybody from the safety meeting. Does that sound good? Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, and thank you, guests. Appreciate you coming in on this and joining us for this. Thank you very much. And we'll see everybody out at the field.
Thank you.
Fly safe, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
Dan.
you.
Steve, everybody. Bye.
Seth, I'm sorry I kind of took it over there. I didn't see you on the. I thought you might have dropped out of the participants list there at the end.
No worries. It's responsibility of somebody to finally stop this.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right, Stan. Thank you.
All right.
I was thinking we can continue on later. I mean,
I think these are things that we need to get the right people together and have discussions in the right forum. So it's probably not the moment. I would suggest this is not the right moment for it. So.
Thanks, guys.